Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class, I'm creating a series of video presentations based on the textbook that will be used for this class for the fall 2019 semester. That book is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5. An A-Press text by Mr. Adam Freeman, and I am working my way through Chapter 16 of 27, and I'm up to targeting other controllers, where the author says the default version of the action link assumes you want to target an action method in the same controller that caused the view to be rendered. To create an outgoing URL that targets a different controller, you can use an overload that allows you to specify the controller name. So we're going to go into action name, and we're going to put in this. And you'll notice the difference is, alright, this was custom variable, but since we did not list a controller, alright, by default, it is in the same controller, alright, that we're currently in. Now, we're targeting the admin controller and the index method of the admin controller. So let's do a file save all. Let's run this. And you'll notice there are now two URLs. When we click the first one, notice we're still basically where we started. But if we click the second one, all right, we've gone to admin. All right. Caution at the top of page 421. Where the author says the routing system has no more knowledge of the application when generating outgoing URLs than when processing incoming requests. That means that the values you supply are not validated, so you got to take care to do it correctly. The routing system includes routes that have been defined using the route attribute when determining how to target a given action method. In 16.5 that you see on your screen and on page 421 of the text, it says you can see how we've changed the controller name in the action link call so that it targets the index action of the customer controller. Remember, this previously said admin. Now, can we do that? Of course we can. All right. Or we can come in and do this. Whoops. We can highlight this, make it look a little nicer. I'm going to put a BR tag in here and a BR tag in here. And I'm going to say yet another controller, index customer. Now we've actually got three links in here, separated by a minimum of white space, but a little bit, so it should look nicer than it did. There we go. I should put one in here after this one too. So that was our outgoing. That was another controller. And this is the customer controller. Notice the controller is customer. The controller is admin. All right. Well, now we're getting an error. Because it's trying to go to, I guess that's why they did it the way they did. Because now when this will work if I go to here, oh, maybe not. Nope. See what's happening now as we're iterating, we're moving our way around in here, is the system, when we get down to one of these and we go back up here, it's looking for custom variable, I believe, in the controller we're in, which is either admin or customer, and it does not find it. So let's go back here. Let's save it because I did make a small change. Remember, since technically I'm changing, I believe, the CS HTML files, yeah, I didn't even have to go back, and I could have just refreshed rather than recompile. See, now that works, but notice as soon as we come back and we target there, now we're an admin. So we get an error because it's looking for, inside of admin, it's looking for that another variable or whatever that was called. This works because these will work all the time because we're giving them the name of the controller and the name of the method. Here, this only works when we start. All right. Let's see, I was wondering if I would refresh if it would work. It doesn't. All right. You can pass values for segment variables using anonymous types with properties representing the segments. So in other words, the equivalent of default values. All right. So they want us to come in here. Let's see. We're back in action name. And we're going to change the div so that it looks like this. And I'll tell you what I'll do is I'm going to keep all my divs that I had in here. Just comment them out. All right. So notice the custom variable is hello. How did we get that custom variable? We put that in there as a default, and when we called the method, we didn't pass in anything for that. So in other words, it used the default value. All right. Understanding segment variable reuse. Bottom half of page 423. The author says here, when he described the way that routes are matched for outbound URLs, he explained that when trying to find values for each of the segment variables, the routing system will look at the values from the current request. That would make sense. This is a behavior that confuses many programmers and can lead to lengthy debugging sessions. All right. So the author says, imagine the application has a single route. Now imagine the user is currently here and renders a link like this. You might expect the routing system would be unable to match the route because we have not supplied a value for the color segment. And there is no default value defined. You would be wrong. The routing system will match against the route defined and will generate this URL. It says the routing system is keen to match against a route to the extent it will reuse the segment variable from the incoming URL. All right. This is not a behavior of last resort. The routing system will apply this technique as part of its regular assessment of routes, even if there is a subsequent route that could match without rendering the current request. The routing system will reuse values only for segment variables that occur earlier in the URL pattern. The best way, the author says, to deal with this behavior, and notice, as he says here, it's a behavior because it's not an error. So the best way to deal with this behavior is to prevent it from happening. The author strongly recommends here that you do not rely on this behavior and that you supply values for all segment variables in the URL pattern. So you're taking control. All right. Specifying HTML attributes, page 424. We have focused on the URL that the action link helper method generates, but remember, the method generates a complete HTML anchor element. We can set attributes for this element by providing an anonymous type whose properties correspond to the required attributes. So we've modified action name here, So let's grab this and this on the next page. And I think the author is commenting this out here. Again, as always, we get that error because we've only copied in part of the page. I think I've got the ending div on there already. Alright, so that was the stuff I was commenting on. So, alright. File, save all. Let's run this. Oops, I don't want to save that link. Alright. So the author is showing you here that the ID has made it across as well. Okay? Alright. Hopefully that made at least a little bit, a modicum of sense there. Generating fully qualified URLs, bottom half of page 425. All of the links generated so far have contained relative URLs. In other words, relative to where we currently are. But we can also use the action helper method to generate fully qualified URLs. All right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that div, copy it to the clipboard, and I want to totally take the div that I have in here, comment that out. All right. That should have been commented out too. There. Believe, well, maybe I haven't. Thought I'd commented everything out of there. Let me do this. Just let me paste this in. All right. And then let me go back to here. Like I said, it looks like here. I think I'm okay now. All right. The point is, take a look now. HTTPS my server mydomain.com. This is the action link overload with the most parameters and accepts values for the protocol, in this case HTTPS, the name, of the target server, myserver.mydomain.com, and the URL fragment, my fragment name, as well as the other options we used previously. And the author actually recommends here, when you look, using relative URLs whenever possible, as fully qualified URLs can create dependencies on the way that the application infrastructure is presented to users. All right. Generating URLs and not links, page 426. The HTML.action link helper method generates complete HTML anchor elements, which is usually what is required, but there are times you want a URL without the surrounding HTML. In this case, you can use the URL.action method. And they show an example of this here. So again, let's go back into here, comment this entire thing out, and then put this in. the URL action method works in the same way that the HTML action link method works, except that it generates only the URL. The overloaded versions and the parameters they accept are the same for both methods, and you can do all of the things with the URL that you could with the HTML. Let's save, run it, and see what happens. All right, I got an error. Well, that's pretty. We should be able to fix that. But notice we're at 16 minutes already. So let me stop the run here, and this says that it's at line 39. So in other words, it's down here. That's doing there. Probably that's what it was. Try it one more time. And then we're finished with the second part of this lesson. Okay. All right. It is a URL. Doesn't have the underline because it's not an anchor element. Okay. Let's stop that. Do a file, save all. And we're going to end this lesson right now.